Men and abortion. What immediately comes to your mind? Maybe you don't think about it at all. But in this video, we're going to unpack how men are affected by abortion and, importantly, how they can heal and find the life that God has wanted for them all along. Today, I am just so blessed to have guests from Support After Abortion, Nyles and Michelle, to help us unpack and tell us about a new and important resource that's available for men after abortion. So let me bring in Michelle and Nyles, and welcome to you both.
Thank
to
you.
My
Thank
mentor, Jane. It's so great to see you both.
you as well. Thank you for having us.
Yes.
So we're going to dive right in, and in this video, we're going to hear first from Nyles. You've willingly agreed to share something about your story, and then to talk about what help is available for men after abortion. So, Niles, would you share what you want about your story and how you can personally relate to abortion's impact on men?
Of course. And I could start off with my story a little bit, and I always feel like my story is similar to other men and could be. But just a little bit about my story, just coming up. I was raised in a Christian household, going to church, and just being with my mother. I was always taught respect women. Women make decisions. No means no. Certain things like that, as every man should understand and know. So just fast forward, I got to college. I always kind of grow with this part, but my story. But I actually had a son my first year of college. Love him to death, and he's probably one of the best things, one of my best accomplishments, and still getting better each and every day. I try to let him know, even though he tries sometimes, like, Dad, that's a little bit too much. Okay, I'm still a boy. Don't hug me too much. I was like, all right, sorry. But just to get into the story a little bit more about my abortion experience, me and this young lady, we ended up meeting the summer before we both had some very big things coming up in our lives. She was getting ready to go to grad school. I was getting prepared to my last year of football before I became a professional athlete, which was always my dream and her dream, as well as always to go to grad school, become a doctor as well. So we ended up dating, and everything was great. Everything was going well. We were being very safe. As I said, I had a son before, so I was being very mindful of our actions. I was making sure we were using protection, certain things like that, as you should. And time goes on, and around she gets ready to go off to grad school, she leaves. I'm getting in football camp, which is where we're in camp practicing for a month, just teammates, nothing else, no school or anything like that. So as time goes on, she's like, I don't feel really well. She's like, I haven't had my period in a while. I feel a little bit maybe nauseous here and there. And at first I was just like, let's go to the doctor, and just saying things because, like I said, we were being very safe. So in my mind, there was no possible way she could be pregnant. So one of the things I said, I was like, hey, you know what? Let's just take a pregnancy test and cross it off our list. Both of us were like, of course, because we both felt comfortable. And I'm at away game. Then calls me, and she shows me a picture of the pregnancy test. Like, she calls me and she sends me a picture of the pregnancy test.
Well,
I was just stunned because in my mind, I was like, we were very safe, we were mindful, and she ended up pregnant. So then after that, she started voicing her opinions, as well as what she was very unsure of and concerns. So I was like, you know what? I'm at a game right now. No disrespect to your feelings. I'd rather be there fully. So I'll wait till I get home from our game. We'll call. We'll have a conversation. So we get home, call her. We have a conversation. And she words many things that her worries are. Her grandparents are raised in the church. Grandfather's a pastor. Grandmother's very involved in the church. They're a big supporter in her life in grad school, helping to pay for bills, certain things, because as we know, school can be expensive. So they were a big part of her life to help her, and I knew I wasn't in a place to really support her if they took away that support if we had that child. So there were just many things that we were going through and talking about, and we just wanted to see all of our options. So one of our options was, you know what, let's think about abortion if that's something that it comes down to, because we're still very unsure and don't know what to do. So we ended up making a plan during my bye week, which is where we have no game and where she was free. I would go down to see her, and we would go see it in a clinic near her that would hopefully talk to us, give us some information, because it wasn't a for sure decision for us. So we went there, and the woman there, bless her heart, she has a mission, and where her heart follows, and I understand and I can respect that completely. And when we went there, we were just there asking questions. We were trying to get to know things, and as she was asking questions, I felt like the questions were very, I don't want to say pointed, but they were pointed towards my partner as well. I wasn't asked really a lot, or she didn't ask me if I had any questions, as well as it was just more of pushing an agenda. And I felt like
Mhm.
I was isolated in the conversation. I felt like she was talking to her, as well as I felt like we weren't being heard, even when I did ask a question and something that we had a concern about. So we ended up leaving. Probably, I definitely myself left farther away than I went going in. I felt like I was more lost. And it was one thing. I know you asked about what can I personally relate to about the abortion impact on men. One of the first things were I just felt isolated. I felt like when it came to the conversation of abortion and what is the decision, and when it comes down to making a decision, I felt like I had no word because I felt like I wasn't valued when I was there or heard or anything like that. And another thing I felt like I could relate to men was when my partner, she asked me, she says, "What do you think?" I said, Whatever you're comfortable with, or whatever you feel like you want to do." And a lot of men, I feel like, especially I've talked to or heard from, they felt like that was the right thing to say. And that's just something I can relate to a lot of men on. And I can't say exactly, I can relate to them exactly because every man is different. We're all different individuals. We have different feelings and emotions. But I feel like there's a lot of other men out there that can relate to that.
Mhm. Wow, and I just can sense the pressure that you were feeling, and then feeling isolated and alone. And I'm sure wanting to do the right thing, wanting to support your partner, and do the right thing, but a lot was at stake, wasn't it?
Yes, a lot was at stake, and to further the story is when we actually decided to go through the abortion. Because after that visit, ended up going through with it. She came to see me at a game, and she that Friday, the day before the game, she said, "You know what? I'll go take the pill." She heard a little consultation. They told her there's a little bit of cramping, a little bit of bleeding, nothing worse than a period. And I always, when I've told this story before, I don't know if my girlfriend at the time was telling me these things to ease my mind because she knows how I can worry, or if that's really what they told her. And if that's really what they told her, it was a complete opposite the next day.
Wow.
Because after my football game, I met up with her and my family after the game, and she started bleeding like profusely, very badly, to the point where she bled through her pants, and she had very bad cramps where she couldn't walk. I had to carry her actually, and it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done, just because I felt helpless and powerless.
Yeah.
And this continues more with the question you asked. That's another part of the abortion experience I felt, and other men can relate to, is feeling powerless. Once you make the decision and start the process, you realize like this is it. I can't do anything but be here to support her. But seeing her in that pain and crying, it's like I just want to take it all away or take it myself.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that it stuck with me a while after our abortion experience, where after everything happened, and it was one of those things I never spoke about again because I was ashamed of myself and I was angry at myself and I felt so much guilt. And a lot of other men can feel that as well. And I felt like I'm I tried to tell myself, oh, I didn't have a big decision in an abortion experience. I mean, I let her choose, but my role was me not speaking up to my feelings, as well as being just an opinion, even though it may not have been the right one. She just wanted to hear how I felt. And I felt like that led to our decision as well.
Yeah. And what happened with the relationship after the abortion?
It became one of those things of, it was that elephant in the room. We would be frustrated with each other. We would be maybe a little irritated, but it wasn't like we did anything in that moment. It was
Yeah.
just one of those things of where you can feel like there's something that needs to be spoken about, or it just never happened. And it
Yeah.
was one of those things that I was scared to bring it up because I didn't want her to be like, you didn't do anything. I was scared of how she would think of me, or I was scared to bring up old emotions for her because I didn't want her to go back in that moment, because that was hard for her as well. Because when she was bleeding and cramping and couldn't walk, there were fans trying to ask me for autographs. So it wasn't like we were isolated in that moment. There were a bunch of people around us, and they may have not understood, but they probably maybe think she had a little bit too much to drink. But that's embarrassing for her and stressful in a high anxiety situation, and I felt so bad. So it became one of those things that we never talk about it, and our relationship drifted farther and farther apart, and we ended up not ending up together anymore, and actually haven't spoken in a few years. And it was one of those things of, it just felt like our abortion experience and never really sitting down and having that conversation.
Mhm. Yeah. We keep it in, you keep it to yourself then at that point, try to move on, right?
And because I hate to say it, with men, we feel like if we ignore it, it never happened or it went away.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally get that. And um, Michelle, well, first of all, Nels, thank you for being so forthcoming with what you've had to say. And I know that people watching will relate to that, and your willingness to share that is going to be so important for people to know that they're not alone. They're not the only one. And so thank you so much for that. I know it's not an easy thing to tell.
Of course, I think.
Um, so Michelle, so listening to Now's experience, for those who watch my videos, they know that I am a big supporter of support after abortion. I think there's amazing work that you all do, and you come in contact with men and women. That's your purpose after abortion. So is Now's experience unique? And what have you found out, support after abortion found out about how abortion affects men?
Thanks for asking, Jane. And Nyles, thanks again for sharing your story. Each time he shares it, I hear something a little different, and it's always moving to hear somebody's story. And what we have found about storytelling is that it's very helpful for those. It provides a perspective that you may not have, and an understanding, and can grow empathy. So thank you, Nyles. While each person's experience is unique, there are elements common to many. So some men share Nyles' experience of being part of the decision. And many, as Nyles said, feel like they were part of the decision, but that they weren't really part of the decision because they were trying to be there to support their partner and feeling like maybe they didn't really have a say. So they were part of the decision, but not. And others are fully part of the decision. Other men may have pushed for or been against the abortion, and others didn't know about it until sometime after the abortion happened. Regardless of their role, many men are negatively impacted by their decisions. Our research on the impact of abortion on men shows that 7 out of 10 men report negative changes after abortion, such as depression, anxiety, anger, grief, substance misuse, and others. And many, like Nyles, hold that in or bury it, and then it often leaks out some sideways way. Either it may be immediately, but for many, it's down the road. And then our research showed that 8 out of 10 men, so even more than said they were negatively impacted, want support. They looked for help or said they could have benefited from talking to somebody about their experience. We also learned some interesting things about the type of support that men want. And those key research findings are why our resource Finding Solid Ground is so needed. 40% of men prefer a faith-based approach to healing after abortion. Now, that also means the flip side, that most would like a secular approach. And we do have Keys to Hope and Healing for Men, which meets that need for secular. But Finding Solid Ground meets that need for those who are looking for religious support. And 8 out of 10 men value anonymity when seeking help, which is why having a self-guided online resource for men is so important.
Wow. Well, I'd really like to know more, and I want us all to know more about this resource called Finding Solid Ground, A Man's Guide to Healing After Abortion. And so, Niles, could you tell us, what do you want us to know about Finding Solid Ground? I've read it. I think it's fabulous, but it's important on what it's focused about.
Of course. Well, first thing I'd like to mention about Finding Solid Ground is, excuse me, is that you mentioned the book, but as well as the video series that goes along with it.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it's something that me and Michelle we spoke about prior in at support after abortion, but it's something I'd love to mention here as well. Is the video series is a great, I like to say, addition to the book. The book is a great resource, as you said. You saw it, you read it yourself, and really enjoyed it. And just the video series, it's great to me because yes, right there we have a narrator that's there. He's walking alongside with you each video through the book as
Wow.
like in a mentor way, and his tone and his delivery, it's so comforting for me as well as a man. I just felt like, okay, this is my friend. I never met the man I'm day in my life, but if I was to call him or see him in public, I'll give him a hug and be like, thank you.
Uh,
And just the tips that they have throughout that we have throughout the video series that is very helpful to men. It's just like an addition. It's that little extra that you have to find while watching a video series. And I won't say it's one thing where you can only do the video series and nothing else, or just the book. I like to say they go together hand in hand, and with the video series adding more. It goes over each chapter. It talks about the chapters of your role, what about emotions, grieving your loss, anger and forgiveness, drawing closer to God, and what's next. Each chapter includes a roadmap and an overview and it includes a man's story in two parts. Food for thought reflections that I mentioned a little bit earlier, mentioned that also the narrator will go through as well with them. Faith-based insights and spiritual power, challenge time, questions and activities, because as we know, men, we like to be hands-on and touch things and fix things, write things, because if we don't do that, we don't feel like we're doing anything. And then a closing prayer at the end that the narrator goes alongside as well.
wow.
And
Wow.
yes, and then one of my favorite things that also have as well is the music and playlist for each chapter. So you can listen to it in the background while you read, or after you finish, you could listen to the music and reflect and take some time briefly, which I enjoyed doing myself after I read each chapter, was just listening to the music, just sitting there and thinking about what stuck out to me in each chapter or in the video series, and then listening to the music and being like, this speaks to me right now.
So, Michelle, tell me more about what makes this Finding Solid Ground unique and so helpful.
Thanks, Jane, for that question. Finding solid ground is unique in multiple ways. As Nyles indicated, it has the video series and it has the book. It's a self-guided program, but it can also be used in groups and one-on-one. And the videos walk men through the book step by step, and they add insights and questions to think about. And the music he mentioned, I personally love the music. It's mainstream stuff like Matt Mayer, and Jelly Roll, and Zach Williams. And the narrator, who Nyles loves, talks about whether it's the insights or the music, he does it in a very casual, conversational way, like he's just there talking with you and giving more information and insight. So it's a really cool merging of those two resources. And together, the book and the video meet men in different ways that they prefer to learn. For example, visually, through the videos and the graphics that are on screen and the visual aids, in an auditory way, through the narrator, the story portrayals, and the music. The stories, I think we haven't touched on a lot yet. So each chapter in the book has a man's story, and it's told in two parts. And in the videos, we have actors who portray those stories, and it just comes alive in a way that is even more impactful than reading it in the book.
Wow.
And then the reading and the writing type of learning through the book, the reflection exercises, journaling, and then kinesthetic hands-on learning through the challenge time activities and prompts that even enable men to engage physically and through doing different tasks. And then, as we've talked about, that conversational, that guy to guy, side to side style. And that's research back too. There's over 100 studies of how men engage in healing that show best practices in caring for men that exactly match Finding Solid Ground's approach with that side-by-side conversation, the man-to-man language, action-oriented, solution-focused, enabling men to tell their stories, And plus the videos that is self-guided allow flexibility, timing, and self-pacing that engages men and makes them more comfortable in their healing process. And then I'll just make another note about the religious component. It is a Christian resource, and the focus is on God's love and mercy. So there's no judgment, there's no judgment, harshness, shame. Men will find compassion and support. And every chapter includes biblical insights and spiritual encouragement. And there's even a chapter, as Nyles mentioned, on drawing closer to God with tips and doable activities.
Wow.
So you asked why it matters.
Yeah.
Men feel heard and seen and respected. It's their language, it's their space. And when support speaks their language and is doable, men will lean in and stick with the challenge, which opens the door to real healing.
Wow. And it's real. I mean, it's real stuff. It's beautifully produced. I can tell you that it's just beautiful to watch the videos. And the book is, by the way, the book is pretty thin for those that are like, I can't read a big, thick book. Well, this book is pretty thin, easily readable. It's just really great. All the resources are just terrific. And I do want to pause for a minute and say that if you're feeling particularly upset, or you want to talk to someone about your experience of abortion, whether you're a man or a woman, reach out to Support After Abortion. I have their number and their email address on the screen. They have people available to talk to both men and women, to guide you to the resources that can help you heal and have the hope that we know is possible. And so, again, here's the number to reach out to Support After Abortion. I can't say enough good things about them and the work that they do. So now, as we're sort of drawing a little closer to the end, how would you say you benefited from this material? Let's hear from someone firsthand.
Of course. And as someone that's still continually working through their healing journey, I've started healing when I first started here, but finding solid ground was just an extra step for me. And with the activities in there where I can write things down, and as I've explained to some of our team members and others, the activities just allow me to just put things on the paper and just really think things through, jot out ideas, thoughts, opinions, how I feel. And one of the biggest things I always talk about that Finding Solid Ground has helped me with, especially with music as well as the Bible verses, is I have a list that I make. Can I control it, and can I not control it? If I can't control it, then let's do something about it. If I can't control it, then why are we worrying ourselves? And I feel like it helps, because at times when I'm over anxious and triggered and certain things come up, because as I said, I'm still working through my journey. Finding solid ground adds just small little tidbits to just in areas where I need it. So if I feel like I'm over anxious and I'm thinking about finding solid ground, I go to that musical playlist. I say, let me listen to this for a few songs. Let me calm down. This brings me to peace. This is why it's here. It's not just for me to read during the book. It's not just for after maybe just debriefing. Maybe it's in a moment of a car ride where I'm stressed. Or another thing is a few of the Bible verses, or even the prayers. I've even started, I wouldn't say I took the prayer exactly, but there's a few elements of each prayer I like to add, use for myself, and even started just using it as a thing to repeat to myself. Make it a little flashcards. I'll maybe flip them around one day, and it's just random ones on each one. And I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to think on today. This is what's going to speak to me today. So that's just a few of the things that a Finding Solid Ground has done for me, as well as, I'm going to say it again, having my best buddy, the narrator, being there along the whole process. He was a great addition as well. And that's something that's helped me benefit in my journey.
I love how practical it sounds, looking through the book and like making a list. So it's not just staying in your head. It's how can I apply this in my life so that I can change, I can heal. And it sounds like you're also learning life skills, which I think is like a super bonus. And because we're going to come across other difficult things in life, and we're going to make other mistakes and sin in other ways. And so just having that support is just huge. Um, so Michelle, how can someone use the Finding Ground materials? There may be people watching who could be running a small group. What do you suggest?
Great question. So it is designed to really support men in the self-guided approach. And as we mentioned, that is key to that anonymity. And we've also found through other people's research that men are less likely to pursue help than women, which might not be a surprise, right, Nyles? And when they do, they're most likely to choose online self-help, followed by coaching or one-on-one support, and then counseling or support groups. And that's because of their preferences for anonymity, control, self-reliance, fear of vulnerability. So the materials can be used self-guided, but they can be used one-on-one or in a group. And in fact, Nyles is going to be leading a group in January with men through that. And in fact, Nyles is going to be leading a group in January, and we know of some other organizations and churches that have started leading groups.
That's great. That's great. And anyone watching who's leading an abortion healing program through a pregnancy center, this would be a great resource that you can distribute and or think about running a group, just for men. So yeah, lots of opportunity.
One of the things I'll just interject, Jane, is a lot of PRCs, they don't have male staff or male volunteers. And so they find that
PRC.
I'm sorry, Pregnancy Resource Centers. So a lot of pregnancy resource centers don't have male staff or volunteers. And so they find that a resource like Finding Solid Ground that has that self-guided approach is something that they can immediately offer to their to the men who come into their centers. And they can offer to speak with them, as a one-on-one in addition.
That's great. And, for the women watching, it pops into my head that it benefits you and your relationship with your partner if if this man has been supported and had a chance to heal, whether it was an abortion you had together or an abortion that he had in the past with someone else. So you may decide to show this video to the man in your life, or to get a copy of the material and say, hey, I don't know what you think about this, but is this something that you want to take a look at? Or maybe you're a mother who knows her son has been involved in an abortion, and it's probably difficult for you to talk to him, and he may not be able to talk to you. But finding the book and giving it to him without pressure, and just suggesting, hey, this is something I heard about. Maybe it would be helpful to you. So we're in it together to find hope and healing for ourselves and for those we love. So if Michelle, if someone wants to get a copy of the book, find the videos, what's their next step? How can they get a hold of this great material?
Awesome. It's so easy. You go to findingsolidground.com. That's findingsolidground.com. You'll find all the resources you need. There's a link to get the book printed or Kindle on Amazon. There's also a link to get the digital download, which is free on our website.
What?
All the videos. Yeah, the digital download is
free.
Free. We want everybody to have access to the healing resources.
Oh, that's
so
amazing.
any man can find the book, the digital version of it, and easily access it and get the videos. Start today. The music links are all right there. There's a free downloadable journal right there at findingsolidground.com.
Wow, that's amazing. And thank you so much for making that available. I know the privacy is important. And so being able to have it digitally is really terrific. And this is just another example of how important support after abortion is to those of us who've experienced abortion. And I just can't recommend the resources, this and so many others that you have for both women and men. So if you have not checked out their website, I really do encourage you to check out supportafterabortion.com and you'll be amazed at the resources that are available for you. So now I'm going to ask you to have the last word for us. Someone who's watching us, both a man or a woman, what do you want them to know?
Of course. Well, first thing I can say to men, and I never say should, all I can say is could. But if any men could take an opportunity and just look at finding solid ground. If you've been impacted by abortion or anything, and if you feel like this is a resource that you're like, okay, I'm not really deep in my faith, I'm not there yet, I don't think I should approach this resource, we can say finding solid ground, it can be used for anyone just getting in their faith as well. Someone that knows their faith and has a relationship with God can pick up finding solid ground. And any man that's still learning and trying to figure out his relationship with God, because even in finding solid ground, we're trying to help you as well grow closer to God as while you go through your healing journey. And just not for any man impacted by abortion themselves, but it maybe if you're a guy, you have a friend, and your friend, male friend, shares that with you. Just make sure you get let them know that there are resources out there for you, because like myself, I didn't know there were even after abortion resources even existed for men or women. So just even if you feel like that's not something for you, maybe take a look at supportabouttheabortion.com and look at any of our other resources that we have available. And then for any women, I'd like to say the biggest thing is if you know any man or that's been impacted, please let them know that there's a resource out there for them. Let them know that there's someone that cares for them, and that this resource, Finding Solid Ground, isn't just something to where you pick up and read, but it's made for men. And it's something where they can have a conversation. There's no judgment, like Michelle answered. There's a way where you can feel like as you go through here, I'm not being judged. I'm being accepted. I'm being helped. I'm being guided. And just know that it's like one thing that we like to say, you're walking hand in hand, side by side with a man through this journey. So even as a woman, if you point a man in that direction, let him know those things. And even you're just let him know that there's a resource for you, him, anyone out there that may be impacted, and Support After Abortion has that resource for them.
What a great conversation today. Thank you, Nyles. Thank you, Michelle. I so appreciate all the work that you're doing and for being with me today.
Thank you so much, Jane.
Thank you.
So, wow, that was an amazing conversation. And what's important that we end it with knowing that God loves you no matter what. And if you're a man who has experienced abortion, there is hope and healing that's possible for you. And if you're a woman who's experienced abortion, you can repair relationships and you can find that life that God has wanted for you all along. This topic of men and women and how abortion impacts us both is pretty deep. There's a lot more to say. And if you'd like to know more about that, you can watch this video coming up that explains 7 ways men are involved in abortion and how their behavior can help you in your healing afterward. Thank you for watching.